Okay, hi everyone. Time now is almost exactly 7:30 p.m. So good evening to everyone. For today's session of the Tiger webcast, we are looking at the Daily Leverage Certificates 101. So for today's session, we're going to do a 101 on the DLCs, the Daily Leverage Certificates, to share with you how does it work, what can you use it for, as well as some other sort of more advanced product features that you should take note of, as well as a bit of a practical series in terms of how can you navigate our website, dlc.socgen.com, to be able to select the DLCs and be able to see how does the DLC move with the underlying asset. So we try to cover all that within a 1 hour time frame today. It's quite a short period of time, so I'll try to move as fast as I can. All right, so very quick introduction first. My name is Marcus. I am from Society General. So we are the product issuer for this product called Daily Leverage Certificates that's listed on SGX Securities Market. So in the name itself, you can really tell a few things about the product, right? But to correct some misconception over here, the first sort of word is daily, right? So this daily, it doesn't mean that you can only trade this product for a day, and you cannot hold it for many days. You can only trade it for 1 day. That's not true. You can trade the DLCs for a few days or a few weeks, but definitely this is a short-term trading instrument, and we do not recommend that you hold this for a long period of time, like months at end or even a year. All right, and then the second word, leverage, right? So this is a leverage short-term trading instrument. It gives you leverage 3 times, 5 times, or 7 times leverage on the underlying asset's performance, right? So this is a leverage trading instrument, and leverage, as you usually goes, is a double-edged sword. So always have to practice good risk management practices, as well as discipline cut loss whenever you are trading a leveraged instrument. All right, and certificate, it is a certificate that's listed on SGX Securities Market. It is tradable through your SGX, sort of your regular stock brokerage account with Tiger brokers, or any other brokers like POEMs or UBKN, etc., or DBS Vickers. They do offer the DLCs the same way that you can find them on the trading platform, the same way that you can find your DBS stock or your UOB stock, for example. All right, so let me dive in. So the daily leverage certificates DLC, as we mentioned just now, is a fixed daily leverage, right? So the daily comes from the leverage. Every day you are getting that 5 times or 7 times leverage on a close-to-close basis on top of the underlying daily performance, right? You are getting that same leverage 5 times or 7 times every day on a close-to-close basis. So that's where the daily comes from. There is also a daily long and daily short DLC. So you have the flexibility to trade both sides of the market. You can either, buy the long DLC to ride on an uptrend, or you can buy the short DLC to ride on a downtrend, right? So you can trade both sides of the market, and that's one of the beauty of the DLCs in terms of the flexibility that it gives you, especially in this kind of markets right now. The market environment now is quite turbulent, it's quite volatile. So having a long short instrument like this is useful for you, whether is it to a short-term speculation, or whether is it to hedge your investment portfolio. This kind of tactical instrument will be quite useful for a more savvy investor, right? So these DLCs are for specified investment product qualified investors only. So you must be SIP qualified. So you can read up more about SIP qualification on SGX website, as well as on our DLC website, which I'll show you later as well. All right, so daily long and short, you can trade both sides of the market, and then you can have leverage, right? That's 5 times or 7 times. We stopped issuing those 3 times leverage already, but we might introduce it again at another time. But right now we have 5 times leverage and 7 times leverage. All the single stock DLCs, which DLCs that's tracked to single stock, your DBS stock or your Alibaba stock, it's all 5 times leverage. All right, and for the indices, such as your DLCs on your MSCI Singapore Index or your Hang Seng Index, those can go up to 7 times leverage. All right, so you have 5 times or 7 times options for the index DLCs. And as I mentioned, it's linked to an underlying asset, right? Either a DBS stock, Alibaba stock, or whether it's the Hang Seng Index or the MSCI Singapore Index. Every single DLC will track a certain underlying asset, right? And that's where you get the performance of the DLC. It will track the underlying asset with that 5 times or 7 times leverage, all right? And it's traded on SGX Securities Market. So we launched this about 5 years ago here on SGX Securities Market. So it is a security. It is not a derivative where it's traded on the future. It's not like an option or futures. It is a security that is traded on SGX Securities Market. which means that you can trade through your regular stock brokerage account, your Tiger Brokers account, or your POEMs, or your UBKN or DBS Vickers. Trade it like a stock. You just need to, you can find it easily. You just search for the counter code on your trading platform, and then you'll be able to retrieve the DLCs as well. Okay, it is traded on SGX Securities Market. So it's not a margin product as well. You don't open a separate account to trade it. You trade it through a regular stock brokerage account, just like how you trade DBS stock or UOB stock. And the liquidity is provided by the designated market maker. So this term designated market maker is a regulatory term. So we are the issuer as well as the designated market maker, DMM for short, for all the DLCs that's listed on SGX Securities Market that's issued by us. All right. So we are obligated by SGX RegCo, SGX regulatory team, to ensure that we do provide bid and offer quotes on the DLCs throughout the whole trading day, as long as the underlying market is open. As long as the Hong Kong exchange is open, then we will market make on the Alibaba DLCs, for example. Okay, so it is on. There will be continuous liquidity throughout the day for you to be able to buy and sell your DLCs easily. So this is something to take note of, even though sometimes some of the DLCs might not be actively traded, for example. Then but you should look at the bid and offer quotes and the volume there. Then you can see that we are still market making on these DLCs, even though it's not actively traded or it's not even traded, which means that you can still buy and sell these DLCs because the bid and offer quotes are there for you to trade. All right. So as I mentioned just now, the DLCs have been listed on SGX for almost 5 years now. We are coming to our 5th anniversary, coming July. So over the last 5 years, it has been quite a journey for the DLCs. We've started off with 10 DLCs, and now we are up to, as I last saw, it's about 240 DLCs listed on SGX Securities Market. So we have expanded quite aggressively over the last 5 years. We started off with just index DLCs, and then we expanded to single stock DLCs in 2018. We started to do more Hong Kong underlying stocks as well, and I'll explain why later on. A lot more Hong Kong underlying stocks as well on top of the Singapore underlying stocks. And then we also launched the DLC on the Hang Seng Tech Index last year when it was first created, the Hang Seng Tech Index. And this year itself, we also launched the DLCs on the US indices, which I will elaborate a bit more on the next slide. All right, so we've expanded beyond the Hong Kong and Singapore shelf to the US market. But within the Hong Kong and Singapore shelf, there is already a lot of choices for you guys already. We have the indices, Hang Seng Index, Hang Seng China Enterprises Index, as well as the MSCI Singapore Index. We are also looking at doing DLCs on the FTSE STI. So please look out for that as well. But we also have a lot of wide offering on the stocks, on the single stock space. We have over almost 50 underlying Hong Kong stocks that you can choose from. You name it, you got it. The Tencent, Alibaba, the big tech giants, as well as some of the old economy stocks like HSBC stock, or PetroChina or CNOOC, for example. So quite a lot of range for you to choose from for the Hong Kong stock underlyings. On the Singapore underlying stocks also, we covered most of the constituent stocks of the STI or the MSCI Singapore Index. So your three largest, Singapore banks are there: Singtel, Wilmar, CapitaLand, ThaiBev, ComfortDelGro is there as well. So we've covered most of the STI constituent stocks. We haven't really ventured into the mid-cap range yet, but maybe in time to come over the next few years, we might explore more in that range as well. Hopefully as liquidity builds up on those names as well. All right, so quite a lot of choices for you guys to choose from on both indices and stocks from the Hong Kong and Singapore space. But the exciting thing that we just launched recently in March and April is the DLCs on the S&P 500 index, as well as the DLCs on the NASDAQ 100 stock index. All right, so these US stock market indices, I think you guys should know it. It is quite popular. Most of you should have heard it or actually follow it when you trade the US markets. So we wanted to do a DLC on these US indices, even though during Asian hours or during SGX securities market hours, these US markets are closed, right? So you might be thinking, then how do the DLCs trade during SGX market hours, right? The US market is closed. Well, simply put, we do track the E-mini futures that is traded, E-mini S&P 500 futures, E-mini NASDAQ 100 stock index futures that is traded during Asian hours on CME. So we do track those futures during Asian hours to be able to give you a price on the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq DLCs. So this will be benefit those who are not too familiar with futures. Futures comes with its own complexity. You have to open a separate futures account. It's a margin product, and also you have to handle the role of the futures as well. And the minimum investment sum also on the futures might not be as cheap as you think. So definitely this security, this DLC, which is a security and traded on SGX securities market, will be a very convenient and a very efficient choice for you guys, for those who want to gain exposure to the US market during Asian hours with a simple instrument that is listed on SGX market that you can access directly through your regular stock brokerage account. Then these DLCs on the US indices might be something that you are keen to look at. Okay, so these 5 times long and short US indices DLCs will give you that 5 times leverage exposure on the underlying index, which is either the S&P 500 index or the Nasdaq 100 index. All right, so it tracks it on a close-to-close basis. Okay, so between day 1 and day 2, it will track the S&P 500 index and give you that 5 times performance. But during Asian hours, we do track intraday performance. We do track the E-mini futures on the S&P 500 as well as the Nasdaq to give you that intraday price during the Asian hours. All right. So this is a very convenient instrument and also something new that we have recently launched, and we're excited to just share with you about this US DLCs. You can find out more information about this on our website, which I'll show you later as well, to be able to see the futures price as well as the index price, the cash index price, as well as on DLCs, how does it move in line with the underlying index, right? So these DLCs, I think so far in the month of April, month to date, in April month, I think the US index S&P 500 was down around 6 or 7%, and then around 8%, right? 8+%. The US index S&P 500 index was down around 8+%, and the S&P 500 DLCs, the long DLC suffered because the underlying index fell. When the underlying index fell, the long DLC would decline in value. The underlying index, so the long DLC was down about -40%, whereas the short DLC, which gains in value when the underlying index falls, was up close to 50%. All right, so it does track the S&P 500 index nicely. And as you know, these are traded during Asian hours, during SGX market hours, when the US market is closed. So it's important to note, and it's not traded during the US market hours, these DLCs. So it's important to know that you can't sort of enter or exit your positions during the nighttime, the US hours. You can only enter or exit your positions during the SGX market hours. All right. So it might not be as suitable, or it might not be a good fit for people who are looking to do an intraday trade. You want to do an intraday trade, you might not be able to get much out of it from these DLCs. But if you are a short-term, a few days or swing trader, a few weeks kind of trader that's looking to gain exposure to the US market easily, then you can really consider this US indices as well. Or if you're also a bit afraid of high impact news during Asian hours that could affect the US market, then you can use these US DLCs to also get in early before the US market open, or even use it to hedge your sort of long-term investment portfolio on the US stocks using these DLCs. All right. So more on this later. Just a very quick one before we jump right into the how does DLC work, etc., and its product features. A very quick one. We do have Tiger doing a DLC promotion. They have started this DLC promotion in the start of April and will extend it all the way to 30th June. You can be rewarded with $150 when you trade any of this DLCs, SGX listed DLCs on your Tiger Brokers platform. All right. So it's just a nice reward for those who are keen to try out the DLCs. No harm getting some free rewards while you are doing your trading of the DLCs. So do check it out on your Tiger app. You should be able to see it in one of the banners under your account. In the middle there's a banner, the scrolling banner there. You should be able to find this reward banner, and you can click on it to find out more information about it. All right. So basic features on the DLC 101. All right. So how does the DLC work? We know that it's a short-term trading instrument. It is a leveraged instrument. It is traded on SGX securities market. You can trade through your regular stock brokerage account. So how does this DLC really work in a sense that it how does it track the underlying stock or underlying index, right? So with that 5 times or 7 times leverage, it tracks the underlying daily performance on a close-to-close basis. So let's look at this example here. DBS stock is up by 2%. So it's up by 2% from yesterday's close of $25. Now it's at $25.50. So that's a 2% gain, right? So the 5 times long DLC, right? I mentioned to you just now there's 2 types of DLC, a long DLC and a short DLC, right? So there's a 5 times long DLC on the DBS stock. And that DLC, 5 times long DBS DLC would have gained by 10%, right? 2% times 5 is 10%. So it will gain by 10% on day 2. Whereas for the short DLC over here, which my head is blocking, you would see that the short DLC would decline in value by 10%, 2% times 5, so it's minus 10%. All right, so and also vice versa, right? If DBS stock was down by 2% today, right, then the DBS 5 times long DLC will be down by 10%, and the 5 times short DBS DLC will be up by 10%. All right. So no matter what, if you are bullish on the underlying stock, you will buy and you expect prices to rise, you expect DBS stock price to rise, you would buy the 5 times long DLC, right? You will buy the long DLC. But if you are bearish on the underlying stock, you expect DBS stock to correct, all right? You will buy the short DBS DLC, you buy the short DLC to be able to gain, which will gain in value when DBS stock declines, all right, or corrects. Okay, so whatever it is, you buy either the long DLC or you buy the short DLC, okay? Please do not go and short sell any DLC out there. I know SGX allows some form of short selling. You can also, because of the whole sort of contra, and you can do short selling. But please be careful that you do not short sell any of the DLCs. You either buy a long DLC or you buy a short DLC. Okay, if you end up short selling and you end up going to the buying market, us as the issuer and the designated market maker, we have to come in and rescue you. But there would be some cost already for you because of the buying market that you have to incur already just by ending up in the buying market. So please do not short sell any of the DLCs, and also be careful when you sell your DLCs after buying it. Make sure you put in the correct amount, all right? That you make sure that you sell what you have, all right? Okay, so you buy the long DLC if you're bullish, and when you buy the short DLC if you're bearish, okay, on the underlying asset. Okay, so that 5 times movement on a close-to-close basis, right? This is just an illustration or one random day in this year, where the Tencent stock itself, right? Tencent stock is up by 1.54%. That is for the underlying stock Tencent, and the Tencent long DLC DIHW is up by close to 10%, right? So this is around 5 times the performance. So this is where the 5 times is for the DLC, right? And you can see the DLC is usually priced around 20 cents to about $2. We try to keep it within that range. And so this DLC is the price itself. It will be around 20 cents to $2. So this DLC itself is 150. So this one will have increased by 10% when underlying stock increased by 1.54%, close to 5 times performance over here. All right, and behind the arrows a bit blocked is the last intrinsic close value. So that is the close. So this 9.76% that is gained from is based on this intrinsic close price that is published on our website, dlc.soggen.com, for every single DLC every evening over here. All right. So every day there'll be an intrinsic close, and then the next day, if the underlying stock goes up by 1%, right, then the DLC will move up in value by 5%, and that 5% is based off the previous day's intrinsic close price. Okay, and you can see over here the short DLC also suffered, because if the underlying stock goes up, the short DLC will decline in value. And you can see over here it's also close to 5 times performance over here, where the underlying this short Tencent DLC DTCW, I mean, this 4-character code is the stock code. Okay, so you can search for this DTCW on your Tiger Brokers account. You can search for it, and it should retrieve this Tencent short DLC on the platform. All right, so this Tencent short DLC also declined in about 6% from its previous intrinsic close price of $1.348, $1.34. All right, around there. So this is where you can see that 5 times performance on a close-to-close basis. All right. So now that we know the basic principle is simple, if the underlying stock is up by 2%, the long DLC will be up by 10%, and the short DLC will be down by 10%. If the underlying stock is down by 2%, the short DLC will gain in value by 10% times 5, right? and the long DLC would decline in value by 10%, right? That's the basic principle of how a DLC works. Every day you will get 5 times the performance of the underlying asset's daily performance, all right, on a close-to-close basis. Okay, so now how can you use DLC for your trading, right? Or how can you use it for your as part of your portfolio, all right? So this, we split into 3 kind of very general categories. We do see people who trade the DLCs on an intraday basis. Some of the Hong Kong stocks are quite volatile. It can move 5 to 10% a day, especially in recent times. So 5 to 10%, 5% times 5 is already 25%. So that's a 25% move on your DLC. So definitely it is possible to do intraday trading. 25% can generate some sizable returns on an intraday basis. So we do see quite a bit of intraday traders on the DLCs, for our DLCs, especially on the Hong Kong DLCs. All right, for swing trading, you can use it for swing trading as well. For which, when I say swing trading, it means you could use it for a few days. You can hold the DLC for a few days, or you can even hold it for a few weeks, right? So you have a sort of a few days or a few weeks investment horizon or trading horizon on the underlying stock, a view on the underlying stock move. You think it'll go up for a few days, or you think it'll go down for a few days. You can use the DLCs to help you to enhance your return based on this view of yours. All right, so we do see some people holding the DLCs for a few days or a few weeks for swing trading, and especially maybe on the Singapore stocks. Singapore stocks, they do not move that much on a daily basis, maybe 1-2% on a daily basis. But if you hold it for a few days or a few weeks, the returns can be quite sizable. And so we do see people using the DLCs for a swing trade on Singapore stocks, for example. All right. And also maybe on the US stocks as well. Like I said just now, for the month of April, the DLCs generated plus minus 40 to 50% gains or losses based on the S&P 500 index move for the month of April. All right, but please do not hold this for long term. I think the max I would go is to hold this for a few weeks, to hold the DLCs for a few weeks, but please do not hold it for months. All right, these DLCs are for short-term trading only. All right, and I'll explain a bit more later. The hedging is the third type of use that we see. So some people who have a very large bag of Tencent stock as their investment that they want to hold on for life until retirement. So they have this whole bag of Tencent stock for their investment, and they see a short-term correction coming in the Tencent stock. Whether is it regulatory headwinds or whether is it clamp down on the tech sector. Well, they could use this Tencent short DLCs to be able to hedge their investment portfolio using the Tencent short DLC. All right. So here are some of the examples of day trading, swing trading, and hedging examples. Very quickly over here, on an intraday basis, from 1.5 hour trade between 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. on a random day in last year, Meituan rose by 2.6% from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And correspondingly, the 5 times long Meituan DLC rose by 14.5%. All right. So that's one. And then swing trading, this UOB stock on between 25th Feb and 30th April last year, investment, a trade of 1 month. UOB was up by 9%, and DDWW, the 5 times long UOB DLC, was up by 48%, right? Times 5 of that, or even more than that because of the compounding effect, which I'll explain a bit more later. And hedging, right? So Tencent was down by 24% from 2nd July to 28th July last year, 1 month period. And the Tencent short DLC DMIW was up by 209% in that same period, all right? So it can help you to, some gains on this 5 times short Tencent DLCs can help you to offset some of your losses on your long-term investment portfolio. So that's where the beauty of DLCs is. You can either go long or you can go short, and you can use it for very different needs: day trading, swing trading, or even for hedging purposes. All right. So the beauty of DLCs is I would say it's a very easy or a very simple and convenient instrument for you to access the Hong Kong stocks, Hong Kong market. Trading into the Hong Kong exchange can be quite costly, and you also have to navigate around a different exchange. How do they, what are their fees, etc. And also you have to change your Hong Kong dollars, Singapore dollars to Hong Kong dollars to be able to trade the Tencent stock or Hong Kong stocks in Hong Kong exchange. But for me, the most sort of tough part about trading in Hong Kong exchange is really sometimes the minimum investment sum. I just did a check the other day. If I want to get exposure to BYD, right? BYD is the car company. With a minimum units of 500 units, and as well as a stock price of almost 200 Hong Kong dollars. Or BYD, I in that sense, it comes by that the minimum investment sum to gain exposure to the BYD stock itself in Hong Kong. I did a calculation off the bat. I think it was around a minimum investment sum of 20k Singapore dollars, just to gain exposure to BYD company in Hong Kong exchange, right? To buy the stock itself, 20k Singapore dollars. Don't know about you guys, but it's a bit hard for me to put in 20k one lump sum into a single stock at one go. So I think it's quite tough in that sense for someone who wants to gain exposure to BYD, wants to ride the EV trend. But then, you can use the DLCs on BYD company or even on Tencent over here, this example over here, to be able to gain exposure to these Hong Kong stocks with a smaller investment sum, right? These DLCs are again priced 20 cents to $2. And then the minimum investment lot units is also 100 units, same as your DBS stock or your Singapore stocks, 100 units only. So you can get exposure to these Hong Kong stocks with as little as a few $100. And you can also, break up your investment sum into, put in $10,000 into this DLC. You can break it up into, a few tranches, right? You can break it up into a few tranches rather than putting one lump sum of $10,000 into the stock itself, all right? So the DLCs do offer some advantages in terms of trading the Hong Kong underlying DLCs as opposed to buying the Hong Kong stock itself on Hong Kong exchange. But of course, these are short-term trading instruments. So if you are looking to invest in Tencent stock or invest in BYD for the long term, for months at end or for a few years, or hold until for many years, please go and buy the underlying stock itself. All right. So that will serve you better in the long run. This instruments DLCs is for people who maybe have a short-term view of Tencent or BYD, for example, and you want a efficient, a cost-efficient, a capital-efficient instrument for you to be able to gain exposure without having to put in a big lump sum of 20k or even changing your money from SGD to Hong Kong dollars just to buy the stock itself. So this would be an ideal instrument for you if you're looking for a short-term trade on the underlying stock, on these Hong Kong stocks. Okay. All right. So a very quick one on a very important key feature of this DLC is the compounding effect. Right. Compounding effect is a very unique. It's a unique feature of these DLCs. It is also similar to leverage and inverse ETFs that have this kind of compounding effect. So compounding effect can work for you or against you. And it works the best in a trending market. In a trending market, whether it's uptrend or is it downtrend, the compounding effect can work for you. But in a very volatile or sideways market, right? Or sideways market that doesn't move much at all, or very, very big swings and then all back at the same point, it might not work for you, right? The compounding effect might not work for you. So let's look at an example here just to see what I mean by how the compounding effect can work for you in a trending market, but it can work against you in a volatile market, all right? So in this example on the left table over here, the underlying, just for example, starts at $100 and it goes up by 1%, 2%, another 2% in these 3 consecutive days, right? 1% first day, second day 2%, third day 2%. Overall, it's up by around 5%, right? The underlying stock. So, but the DLC gives you that 5% return, 5 times return on a close-to-close basis every day. First day is up by 5%, second day is up by 10%, third day is up by another 10%. All right. At the end of the day, it is up by 27%. All right. So 5% times 5 is 25%, right? So where did this extra 2% come from? All right. So this is compounding effect. Every day your gains and losses are locked in. And so every day your 10%, your day 2 10% is based off a higher base. Your day 3 10% gain is off a higher base again as well. So there is that compounding effect. And in the end, you will get more than 5 times leverage. It will vary from that 5 times leverage. So you do get an extra enhanced returns if you manage to capture a strong trending market, right? Okay, so that's where the extra 2% kicker comes from in the context of from the compounding effect. But let's look at a volatile market itself, right? So the underlying is on the table on the right. The underlying is up by 2% on day 1, down by minus 4% on day 2, and on the third day it's up by 7%, 7.3% to give you that 5% overall return, right, on the underlying stock. Whereas for the DLC, on the DLC, you can see every day it still gives you that 5 times return, 2%, 10%, minus 4%, minus 20% on the DLC, plus 7.3%, plus 37% on the DLC. But overall, at the end of the 3 days, it's up by only 20%. Right? So the underlying is only up by 5%. 5% times 5 is 25%, right? So but then this DLC is only able to give you that 20%. All right, it's only able to give you that 20% return. Again, this is because of the compounding effect. Every day your gains and losses are locked in. So on the second day, when the DLC dropped by 20%, so that's a big fall. And so this on the third day, the 37% gain is based off a lower base of $2.20 already over there, right? On previous close of $2.20. So therefore, your gains and losses are locked in every day. And so at the end of the 3 days, this plus minus 20%, you lose that 5% expected gains because of the compounding effect. All right. So the compounding effect can work for you or against you. In a strong trending market, like in the table on the left there, it goes up, up, up every day for consecutive days, you will get more than 5 times that return. But in a very volatile market, like the table on the right, up, down, up, down, up, down, you will not be able to get that 5 times leverage as you would have expected. Okay, so please take note of the compounding effect when you trade the DLCs. These are just some examples of how the compounding effect can work for you in a strong trending market over 7 trading days. This is JD. JD was up by 7.86%, while the DLC, 5 times long DLC was up by 43%. All right, so that's more than the 8% times 5, 40% sort of expected gain, and the extra 2 or 3% kicker came from the compounding effect. And this is in a volatile market. This is less than the expected performance as well. So it's another example of how the compounding effect will work against you in a volatile market on the DLCs. Okay, and so that is a very important feature. Compounding effect is the number one important feature that you should know about the DLCs and also be able to understand how it works. All right. So because of the compounding effect is one reason why we do not advise that investors buy and hold these DLCs for a long period of time. In the long run, markets can go very, very, very mean reversion, etc. It can go sideways, right? In the long run. But in the short run, you could be able to have a bit more certainty or a bit more conviction in terms of how the trend of the market will go in the next few days, in the next few weeks. That is probably the max of the sort of holding period for DLCs, less than a month. So please do not hold these DLCs for a long term because of the compounding effect, but also because of the cost and fees, which I'll touch on next. All right. So when you buy and sell the DLC intraday, there is no fee that is charged on the DLC. Okay, we only charge you that spread, that bid and ask spread. But of course, you have to take into account your SGX trading fees, your SGX exchange fees, as well as the commission by a broker. All right. So that's if you buy and sell during intraday, right? You buy and sell within the day itself. But if you do hold the DLCs overnight, all right, if you hold the DLCs overnight, there is an overnight funding cost. Similar to all leverage products out there, there is always an overnight funding cost. And this is also displayed on our website and transparent to investors for you to see what is the daily cost, right? That is charged to the product itself. It is deducted from the intrinsic close value, which I mentioned just now, of the DLCs every evening. And then it does not charge to you separately, so it is already charged within the value of the product itself, okay, within the value of the DLC itself, okay? So that is if you hold the DLCs overnight, all right? So there is an overnight funding cost that is the same every day throughout the year. Some of you might be familiar with options or with structured warrants. So these DLCs are nothing like that. It is, besides the fact that they're both leverage instruments, the DLCs do not have time, the impact of time decay. It does not have that theta or etc. that where the time decay, where the value of the warrant or the option will decline rapidly towards expiry. All right. So these DLCs have a very consistent overnight cost and fees, overnight funding cost that is charged the product value every day. All right. So this is an example of a DBS long DLC over here, where this daily charge of $0.000652 is charged to the value of the DLC overnight, the sort of the intrinsic close of the DLC for that day. All right. So this amount is charged to is deducted from the value of the DLCs at the end of the day. Okay. So as you can see, it is quite a small amount. It's a small amount if you hold the DLC for 1 day, for 2 days, or for a few days. In my opinion, it's quite negligible compared to the returns that you returns or losses that you are looking at for the DLCs. But if you do hold the DLCs for months at end, then you need to be cautious of this overnight funding cost, right? So I would say on average, the DLC funding cost can be about 10 to 15% a year on a per annum basis. This is quite similar to other leverage instruments out there. So if you hold it for a whole year, you could see that your returns will be just eroded by 10 to 15% based on the overnight cost and fees. All right. So besides the compounding effect, overnight cost and fees is also another reason why you should not be holding DLCs for long term. It is just for short-term trading. And if you trade it for a week or 2 weeks or a few weeks, the overnight cost and fees should be quite negligible compared to your potential returns on the DLC. All right. Sorry, I'm speeding up a bit because I think we have a lot of cover. I just want to show you our website. We have you navigate it around to see, what are tools you can use in our website to be able to understand how the DLCs work. All right. So the airbag mechanism is something that is inbuilt into every single DLC. This is designed to reduce the actual exposure of the daily leverage of the DLC to adverse movements in the underlying asset. All right. So every DLC will have an inbuilt airbag mechanism. So there is different trigger levels for different underlying types. For all the stock DLCs, for all the stock DLCs, single stock DLCs, the airbag trigger level is at plus minus 15%. All right. So it's only triggered when it goes against the direction of the DLC, but the airbag will not be triggered on the DLC that's in line with the market direction. So if the stock goes up by 15%, right, the long DLC, the airbag will not be triggered. In fact, 5 times 15, you get 75 on your long DLC. But the airbag will be triggered on the short DLC. All right. So if the stock goes up by 15%, the short DLC will trigger the airbag. All right. And then vice versa also. If the underlying stock goes down by 15%, the long DLC airbag will be triggered, whereas the short DLC, the airbag will not be triggered. You'll be enjoying 75% gains on the short DLC. All right. So what happens when there's airbag trigger, right? So when it triggers on the airbag mechanism, when airbag is triggered, the DLC will be suspended for 30 minutes for us to do an intraday reset on the DLC. All right. So we'll do an intraday reset on the DLC, and then after it resumes trading 30 to 45 minutes later, the performance, 5 times performance, is based off this new observed level that was determined during the suspension period. And so therefore, your exposure to the underlying stock performance is reduced as a result as well. So if the underlying stock keeps dropping, and then your long DLC will just go like that. It'll go close to zero, but it will not go to zero. Even if the underlying stock keeps dropping. All right. But if the underlying stock rebounds, then your ability to recoup your losses on the DLC will also be reduced. All right. So this airbag is inbuilt into every single product. The airbag triggers are there. But we do note that these airbag triggers do not happen on a daily basis. All right. It doesn't happen very often in that sense. It is only meant to be triggered when there's a significant or adverse movement in the underlying stock or index. All right. Okay, so it's something you can read up about on our website as well to find out more. Okay, and a very quick one on how is DLC is different from other leverage products out there, right? So I mentioned a bit about the difference between DLCs and structured warrants and options, where DLCs is quite different as a product. Whereas for DLCs versus margin products out there like your futures or your CFDs, for example, these are not margin products. Your DLCs are not margin products. So you do not have to you will not face the risk of a margin call in that sense, right? Even if the underlying stock drops by, say 30% times 5 times leverage is 150%, right? But you cannot lose 150% on the DLC. You can only lose the maximum is 100% on the DLC, all right? You can only lose as much as you've invested on the DLC. You put in $2,000, you buy 5 times long 10-cent DLC, $2,000 worth of it. You can only lose that $2,000. You cannot lose more than that, because by nature that this is a security that's listed on the securities market. It's not a margin product, so you cannot lose more than that. Whereas for some of the margin products out there, you could potentially get a margin call if the underlying stock goes by 30%, down by 30%, and you are 5 times leveraged up, right? Okay, so there's no risk of losing more than your invested capital, and the maximum you can lose is only what you put in to buy the DLC, right? And no time decay, no implied volatility as compared to your structured warrants or your options in that sense, right? DLC and CFDs are quite close in terms of their performance. All right, so they are both leverage instruments and a bit more linear in their pricing as compared to other leverage instruments out there. But for DLCs, maybe I can share one pro and one con about DLC versus CFDs that is quite prevalent out there. So for the DLCs, the unique feature is the compounding effect, right? And this is something that CFDs do not have, right? So you have to understand the compounding effect when you trade the DLC. All right, and but however, a pro for the DLC is it could be quite suitable for active traders out there who want to go in and out of your trade, because the DLCs do offer cheaper commissions compared to your CFDs out there. All right, so when you trade $2,000 worth of CFDs, putting $2,000 and they give you that margin and the exposure up to $10,000 worth on DBS stock, for example, your commission on the CFD space is charged on that 10,000 notional exposure that you're getting on the DBS stock. Whereas if you buy 2,000 worth of 5 times long DBS DLCs, for example, and get the exposure of 5 times, so 5 times 2,000 is 10,000, you get that notional exposure of 10,000 on DBS stock, but you are only charged your commission, etc., exchange fees on that $2,000 worth, not on the notional exposure. So the commission and transaction cost for DLCs is in fact 5 times cheaper on the DLCs compared to your CFDs. So for someone who is very active in trading, you're in and out, you make multiple trades within a day, or then you might want to consider the DLCs, because you can really save quite a bit in terms of the transaction costs. All right. Okay, so I've come to my part where I'm more excited about, where I want to show you, you guys, our website, dlc.socgen.com. so you can see for yourself, what are the DLCs out there and how does it work, and in a live case, as well as also see, how can you select DLCs. So I'll just switch to sharing my computer screen, my sort of Safari, so that you can be able to see our website over here. All right. So this is our website, dlc.socgen.com over here. Okay. So you can see our website, dlc.socgen.com. Over here, this is our main banner. This is where we launched the US equity indices. And you can see some of the just very brief summary of the DLCs, which are the top gainers today, what are the top losers today. So it's not surprising that you often see like double-digit gains or losses over here, given the 5 times leverage that you have on the DLC, and especially on the underlying stocks. But even one Thai BEV was quite good today, actually. So let me just quickly point you to our US equity indices page. So this is where you can find more information about the US equity indices DLCs that we just recently launched. You can read up more on the features as well as the performance to understand more about this S&P 500 and Nasdaq DLCs before you trade it. All right. So it's over here under News, US Equity Indices DLC. All right. And our DLC newsletter is over here. You can always sign up as well over here for our newsletter to receive some of the latest updates on what's happening in the DLC space. And now under products over here, to look for a DLC, you will go to under products, search, and then you would looking at, for example, you want to gain exposure to, say, a very simple example of city development. All right, let's look at city development stock. All right, so this is city development, and then I click search. I will be able to get it over here. All right, so there is 2 long and 2 short DLCs on this. So there are multiple DLCs at different price ranges for you to choose from. Some people like a bit more of a higher price DLC, some people like a lower price DLC. And ultimately, it depends on the sensitivity. All right. So for someone who is a bit more of an active trader, intraday trader, they might want to have to choose a more sensitive DLCs so that they can get a wider tick range movement. Whereas for those who are more of a swing trader, they are okay with a DLC that is a bit less sensitive. But whether it's high sensitivity or low sensitivity, it doesn't matter. All the DLCs supposed to give you that 5 times movement, 5 times performance on the underlying asset's daily performance on a close-to-close basis, right? You still give you that 5 times leverage no matter what. All right, but for ease of choice, we have indicated over here the most sensitive DLCs with the star over here. So when in doubt, we'll say just look at the star. Choose the DLC that with the star between the two long DLCs over here. So in this case, I would choose DEUW over here. All right, and I see CD development DLC over here. This is the stock code DEUW, and this is the underlying asset name. This is the 5 times leverage that you're getting. This is a long DLC over here in the name. SG stands for Society General. So this is the one that's issued by us. And the last 6 digits is the expiry date in year, month, date format. All right, so maybe a bit of 101 or so. All the DLCs come with an expiry. It can be either 1 year, 2 years, or 3 year expiry. All right, and this expiry is something that perhaps you don't have to be too concerned about. Just don't choose one that is too near the expiry because you want your time for your trade to play out as well, right? But unlike options or structured warrants per se, where the value of your DLC will decrease, you take into account time value of money, and as it goes towards expiry, the time decay will increase towards the expiry. But for this case, every day your DLC will just give you that 5 times performance all the way up till the last day on valuation date, just be 1 day before the expiry date. All right, every day all the way up to valuation date, 1 day before the expiry date, will give you that 5 times movement on the close-to-close basis every day. All right, so you don't have to be too concerned about the expiry. Even if you hold it, and it goes into expiry, if you hold the DLC and it goes into expiry, whatever that the value of is, the remaining value, or whatever the value of the DLC is on valuation date, will be cash settled to you via CDP, right? So SocGen, we will cash settle the DLCs via CDP to all the holders out there. So you will get it as as the same way that you get your stock dividends from DBS stock dividends or UOB stock dividends. It will be credited to you guys. All right. Okay, so this is back to this terms page itself. You can see the name of the DLC here, and you can see the stock code over here. All right. And this is the last price of the DLC, the last traded price. But our SocGen B&Rs over here. All right. So it's important that you look at our B&Rs throughout the day, because the B&Rs throughout the day will move in line with the underlying stock. Okay, so you can see over here, CD development was up by 0.16, right? Cents, dollars, right? So it's up by 2% today. And the DLC correspondingly, 5 times long DLC is up by 10%, around there. And the short DLC should be also down by around 10%. All right. So this 0.190 is based off this decrease by 10% from the last intrinsic close of 0.172. All right. Okay. So this was the last intrinsic close yesterday, right? On 4th of May, right? So it increased by 10% from this last intrinsic close. Okay, so this is where that 5 times movement on a day-to-day, on a close-to-close basis, this is where that 5 times movement comes in, all right? And for you to be able to see and over here is also your costs and fees, all right? So you can see a lot more information out here in terms of the spread, the outstanding value. So we do issue a finite number of issuance for this every single DLC. So if you see that this DLC outstanding quantity is close to like 80%, 90%, then maybe you want to go and try and choose another DLC that is less outstanding. Like I said, we do launch or list a few DLCs of the same leverage and direction for investors to choose from. So when it is sold out over here, close to 90%, it means that it's sold out. And once it's 100% sold out, we will not be able to make markets on the ask anymore. So which means that you can't buy anymore. But we continue to make our markets on the bid over here. All right. So it means that you can sell back to us if you're holding the units of this DLC, but you will not be able to buy more if this outstanding quantity is at 100%. All right. And costs and fees over here, like I mentioned just now. So over here, daily costs, you can see that this value in dollar terms was deducted from the value of the from this value of the DLC over here, 0.172, for yesterday, right? So yesterday, 4th of May, this was deducted from the product value, from the value of the DLC itself, because of the overnight costs and fees that is charged. Okay, so and you can see also our listing documents over here. Encourage you to read through it before you start trading as well. All right, so how important is this page here in terms of the terms page for each DLC? But another useful tool you can use as well is the price matrix, right? Instead of having to calculate in your mind, how does the DLC price move 2% times 5, 10%, and then 10% times by the close value, it can be quite a lot for you to calculate as well, right? So we have this price matrix too for you to be able to see, how does the underlying stock move? In line, how does the DLC move in line with the underlying stock, right? How does the BNRs move with the underlying stock? So over here you can see 0.172 was yesterday's close, 4th of May. And also CD development closed at $8.19 on the 4th of May as well. So today, CD development moved up. It moved down. It moved. Sorry, this is actually today's price, right? CD development price today, right? So it moved up by 2%, right? So if the underlying stock moves up by 2%, then the DLC will move by that 10% movement. All right. So you can see over here, how does the underlying stock move in line with, how does the DLC move with the underlying stock, right? So if the underlying stock moves up by 4%, tomorrow, all right, then the underlying stock, then the DLC, the 5 times long DLC will move up by 20% over here, times 5 of this. And then the DLC will be around, this P alpha will be around this value over here. All right. Apologies for that, but I think that this value has not been updated yet. All right. So this value should be 0.19. Okay. It will be updated tomorrow morning. Right now, this 0.172 is as of 4th of May. All right. So this price matrix will be updated with this 0.19 value over here. And then you can see how, all these numbers will be updated as well. And then you can see, if the DLC underlying stock moves up by 4% tomorrow, then this 0.19 times by 20%, right? Let me just do a very quick one for you. 20% of 0.19 is 22 cents, right? So the DLC, the bid offer, will be at around 23 cents tomorrow. So the SGBNRs will move in line with the underlying stock throughout the trading day. All right, and you can use this price matrix to have a look at it. Please do come back to it tomorrow in the morning and see this price matrix again. It should be updated in the morning. All right. Okay, so this is an important tool for you to see the price matrix, the terms page, and the price matrix page. All right, and then back to the search page itself. Okay, so you can look at some of the other DLCs as well. Let me look at a bit more complicated one. Okay, the Hong Kong ones have quite a lot of DLCs listed. Okay, over here you have many long DLCs listed, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 long DLCs on Alibaba, because Alibaba is actually the top trader underlying for the DLCs. Many people love to trade the Alibaba DLCs. So we did have to list quite a few of them as well. But in any case, choose the star one, which will give you the most sensitive Alibaba long DLC, and also a star here for the most sensitive Alibaba short DLCs. All right, you can see the plus minus sign over here, the plus sign over here. This means that you can add it to your watch list. So I want to add it to my watch list over here. I added, I add these DLCs to it. And then I look at my watch list, I can see, okay, there are 5 DLCs that I've added it to my watch list, right? So you can add your favorite DLCs to your watch list and be able to, easily navigate to it for these DLCs. All right. And under our education page, you can see there's quite a lot of content over here for you to have a look at. There's also videos for you to have a look. All right. So there's some videos that you can also browse through, but do encourage everyone to look through our DLC education page for to read more about how does the DLC work, what can you understand from the name, whatever that I've sort of tried and condensed in this 1 hour. Hopefully you can take your time and also look through this content to learn more about the DLCs. And the last tab itself under the market section is a whole lot of information that or insights that you can also leverage on. All right, so you can see what are the inflows and outflows of the DLCs. I want to see who have been buying the long DLCs. So long DLCs over the last trading day, people have been buying the long DBS DLC and the long UOB DLC. Over the last 5 trading days, people have been selling back their long and OCBC and DBS DLC as well as the long Meituan DLCs. All right, and on the short side, maybe I can have a look. Right, on the short DLC that let me untick the long DLC. Okay, DLC, and people have been selling back the Hang Seng short, taking profit on the Hang Seng short DLCs. All right, you can also choose your underlying over here to see the trend over the last few days of what the fund flow has been like on the DLC. Okay, and you can also see the long short ratio as to who's been buying what. For example, on the, let's look at DBS. All right, so DBS DLC, about 60% people are long, while 40% of them are short, right? On the DBS DLC. So we mean that 60% of the current DLC outstanding on the DBS, 60% is long, 40% is short. This one is a fund flow that is released by the SGX, so it's published on their website. We've just tried to make it over the last few weeks to see what has the weekly fund flow been like for the DLCs. You can see over here the last 3 weeks. January, let's look at Insti. Insti has been net buy on city development, Singtel and Sets, while retail have been net buy on the DP retail. So interesting for you to see the trend of the fund flows on this underlying stocks. So this is on the underlying Singapore stocks. And also you can see under underlying Hong Kong stocks, which ones have been under the Southbound Connect, where have the fund flows coming from, which one are the most active traded stocks, Sinok, Meituan, Hong Kong Exchange, and also the top 10 underlyings in terms of the traded. And you can see over here the respective long and short DLCs that you can choose from. I want to look at Kuaishou, and then I look at this Kuaishou long DLC triple DW, right? Over here, and you can see the terms as well as the price matrix for it. Okay, so this is a very quick navigation of our website. Most important thing about our website is this hotline over here. So our hotline number for this DLC is 6226-2828. Okay, so this, you can call us. My team and I, we are on standby to be able to answer your calls and be able to address any of the questions that you have on the DLC. So if one takeaway, from this whole 1 hour for this DLC webinar is that this is the biggest takeaway. This DLC hotline, 6226-2828. Give us a call. Happy to run through any of the items that I missed out on today, or to elaborate more on the items that I've mentioned today. And also any questions that you have, any feedback you have on the DLCs, we are here to answer your calls. If you're a bit shy to talk to us, please do drop us a note as well. Drop us a note here, it'll be sent to our mailbox, and we'll be sure to reply to you as soon as possible. All right, so contact us, reach out to us if you have any questions on offline or our mailbox. But otherwise, please visit our website, dlc.socgen.com. You will be able to find all the resources that you need over here. So you look at the DLCs over here, you search for the DLCs that you want. Over here, S&P 500 index, you look for it. And then you look for, you see, okay, SocGen's BNR is over here. So now I go to my Tiger Broker platform. I look for CWAW. I key into the search bar, CWAW. It should retrieve this S&P 500 long DLC. And then can place my order at 1255, for example. All right. So that's how this website can help you as well. But you have to trade it on your brokerage account, right? So you can't trade it in this website over here. You have to look into your Tiger Brokers account, trading platform, and to look for this DLC in order to trade it. All right. So I hope that today's session is useful for you to be able to get a bit more understanding on how the DLCs work, as well as more resources for you to be able to see how you can learn more on the DLCs. All right. In such market environment now, where it's quite volatile, Singapore, Hong Kong, US all have been quite volatile. So I think these instruments will come in handy as part of your overall investment portfolio. I mean, of course, I don't expect you to, if you have 100K, do not put the full 100K in the DLCs. Your 100K, 80K, 80% or 70% or 90% will go into your investment portfolio. But the 10% or 20% of that 100K of that investment sum that you have can to go into tactical instruments like these DLCs for you to be able to capture short-term opportunities in the market, especially in such volatile times, or as well as in case you need to do some hedging or some on your overall investment portfolio, then these DLCs might come into handy. These tactical instruments like this, long short, with a bit of leverage will come into handy when it comes to times of volatility. All right. So I think that's all for me today for this 1 hour session. I've ended just right on time, 8:30 p.m. I hope that you found this quick session helpful. As mentioned again, do check out Tiger Broker's promotion on the DLTs right now, where trade the DLTs and you can claim your $150 reward. Okay, so this offer is until 30th June. So do check it out. You can also view it on the Tiger trading platform, or you can also come to our website and then just click on this link. All right. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you everyone for joining me this evening, and do reach out to us if you have any questions at all on the DLTs. Right. Thank you.